Pop in, say hi. If you've never come into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And give us a few minutes. YouTube will get those notifications out. My crew will come in. If you want to pop in, say hi. I love meeting new people, bringing people on board. And when you meet the people that kind of hang out with me every Sunday night, you'll get to know that they have been with me for very long time, very long time. I'm so grateful for that. But there's a reason for that, right? Because this is just as much okay, there's new monitoring programs here, but we'll wait. Owen, I don't know. YouTube just sent me a notification saying there's new utilities in the moderators. I don't know if you have access to any of that information when you hit the wrench or anything, but I'll check into it after my live. They're saying there's no more tools and stuff going on. But yeah, if you've never hung out with us before, come in, say hi, get enveloped. And that is exactly what the word is. You come in, you'll feel so welcome. And if you don't want to come in, if you don't want to be in the comments or anything, you just want to kind of hang out in the background, you're welcome to do that too. Even for myself, I spend almost all my times when I go into the live shows, I usually stay in the background. I'm not usually somebody who contributes in the comments because I see the crazy town, and that's unfortunate, right? That's unfortunate, but that's right. We are working on solutions to make these platforms easier and better and more comfortable for people. But it's not exactly there, at least for myself. I have no idea. You know, yes, I may know the creator's content and I may have a relationship with what's being presented by these creators. But when it comes to inside the comments, right, it's sometimes a little bit crazy town. And we do have to stay safe when we're online. That's part of what's going on here. My platform, PrairieDodgers, whether it's, What's My Good Cheer, my Monday to Friday show, or Chatters Live on Sunday night, we just have a set of values, and it just makes it really comfortable and really easy, right? Because we all know how the game is being played, right? Is that a good way of saying it? The way the game is being played? But we don't necessarily always know each other, right? We don't know what's going on inside their minds, what's going on inside their lives, their relationships. But when they come in here, right, they represent somebody who's taken a break from that life, right? And we're stepping in to another part of ourselves, a place that, right, feels comfortable, feels like we belong. I don't know about you guys, but I sure belong here on Sunday nights. I guess it wouldn't be the same if I just hit that live button and I just went and did the dishes or something and left you guys to entertain yourselves. But you know what? That's the crew you guys are, though. You would entertain yourselves in any situations. There have been moments when I've had to go and answer the door. I've had to run downstairs and pick up a package. I try really hard. I live a bit of a boring life, so it's not like, I am busy with these official going ons all the time, but on occasion, I do have those trip ups. Even today, I was kind of saying, oh, yesterday, because Saturdays I take off. Hello, Andrew. Hello. Saturdays, I usually take off from being online, like presenting myself online. I'm still online, but I'm usually just doing things that I like to do. Yesterday, I walked out of the building and I stood at the back of the door and I decided what direction do I want to walk in. That was pretty cool. I love that, right? To leave the house without a destination, knowing I had a few chores that I had to get done and stuff. So, in deciding what direction to go, I took that into consideration, right? The things that I needed to get done. And I had the most beautiful little day. By the time I got home, it was starting to rain. The rain always misses me. I don't know. I Even when I went camping, you guys, in September, there was tons of rain. But most of the time, that rain happened when I was sleeping or when I was driving or when I was in the middle of a forest where, the forest was keeping me dry. And then on occasion, right, to have the experience of being in the rain, I did go out into it, but I didn't have to very much, right? It was kind of neat for all the little mishaps and trip ups and wrenches being thrown into my holiday, and there really wasn't that many. It was just the exhaustion. I was just happy to be out of the city. I was happy to be on the road. I was happy just to be with myself and again, right, being offline. And it is a really amazing feeling, but I set my life up as a routine because my brand is very important to me, right? Maybe there is no kickoff in this moment, but I suspect if I keep moving, right, if I keep being that example for others, right? By just getting the job done, just in my creation of the best human being that I can be, that maybe I could be the evidence for others that they can go off and just live and create the best human being that you want to be, right? Each one of us here, as close as we are so different from each other, right? So different from each other. And we have different gifts and talents and things that I admire about, like I admire how Owen takes care of his mother, right? That's something, I don't know. I could do a lot of things. I could even have my arm twisted and do a lot of things. But for myself, that would be a toughie, right? Because my freedom, it means a lot to me. And I believe each one of us is beholden to live our own lives, but we're not always able to, right? So it's important that what we love to do, right? And the people that we love to take care of, that runs in line with what we want to do. And I suspect Owen loves taking care of his family. He's been doing it for a very, very long time. But it also makes me wonder, right? And these things are curiosities to me all the time, right? It's like even Andrew having his own things that he loves, right? The things that he does, and they're not always fun, right? Right, but they're things that make us feel good when we get them done. And sometimes, you think that's just the way that we were brought up. But I, for myself, I believe that's just our nature. And I think that's our nature for everybody being here. We're all doing our own thing, we're all creating our own lives. But again, there are times when you need to get away from what's going on in our lives, right? And just take a break. And today I said, "Oh, Cindy, right? Your days off was so good yesterday. Like yesterday, I went for a walk. I had a nice dinner. I can't even remember what I had for dinner, but I had a nice dinner. I made connections. I even bumped into one of my sisters when I was at one of the thrift stores, just doing a little bit of browsing around, see if I could find a score that I could sell online. But it was just a really enjoyable day. And then today, right, I was like slug, right, because I had gotten all my chores and everything done yesterday, so I could have the day that I had yesterday without the responsibility of responsibilities, right? And then today, get up and there isn't anything for me to do because it's pretty much done, right? I can go ahead. There are house projects I can get into, right? There are things that I've been wanting to do that I could have jumped into. But I thought, you know what? Let's just carry on today and just let today also be like a day off. And right, I got a couple of little things that I needed to get done, but for the most part, no, I was a slug, right? And until I got motivated to have a shower and get dressed, right? It was pretty much a pajama day. But those are the rainy days too. We had a really, I just enjoyed sitting here today and just looking out at the sky. I just love my big picture window, right? And you look at the big black clouds and I estimate, right, how fast these clouds are moving because they were moving so fast today. Because when I got up, it was so sunny. I went, oh my goodness, today was the day that should have gone for my walk. What is supposed to be 14 degrees? Oh, that's beautiful. Why did they decide that yesterday was going to be the day that I went on my walk? And then within an hour, I'm looking at the sky and it's pitch black. Looks like tornado skies, right? These clouds are all big and puffy, but they're all big and puffy and black, different shades of black. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So I looked at the Weather Channel and they said it was supposed to rain in a couple of hours. I said, well, it looks like it's going to rain right now. And then they took all the rain off of the, what do you call that, forecast. They took it off the forecast. And oh, all these black clouds, and I'm not even going to get rain today. And then for just some reason, I looked up from what I was doing, and it was raining. The streets are drying up now, so it stopped raining about an hour ago. But it was really nice just to sit here, and the dark, dreary days, they give me the, I want to wear my pajamas. I want the couch, the remote control. I don't even have a TV, but but that's the feeling that it gives me. Hello, Kathy. That's the feeling that it gives me, and I've had that so bad today, right? But I allowed myself to have that lazy day because that's what it was. It was truly just a lazy, drag your bum kind of day. Yeah, it was good though. Okay, you guys. Topics of discussion. I got my goal list done for this year. It's not a very big one. So, what I had done is I put some of my life goals and stuff, right? So, I put the SUV on the goal list. Now, that's a big one. That doesn't seem reasonable in the circumstances that I'm in, that I'm going to be able to accomplish getting that SUV this year. but dream big, right? I'm gonna dream big, and I know sometimes it just takes one decision, one opportunity, one conversation, right? And my whole life can turn upside down on its head, and I could be living a totally different life. And no matter what that entailed, right? I would jump into it and revel in it, even not even understanding what was going to happen at the moment. That's how desperate I am. I'm getting a little bit bored in that, right? That I'm even looking to get back to work, right? Just to take me out of the boredom. But I did have a nice day. And if I was working, I wouldn't have had a day like I had yesterday, right? I wouldn't have had a day like I had yesterday. I wouldn't have been able to go on that trip that I went on in September. I wouldn't have been able to spend that little bit of time with my sister while she was having her bypass surgery, right? I wouldn't have been able to go thrifting with my sister and find scores to put the roof over my head. So these are things that I have to consider when I make choices, when I make decisions. I'm not somebody that needs to be super rich. I don't need that. I can manage quite fine in where I'm at right now. If I can manage with where I'm at right now, I can I can manage. It would be silly that anybody couldn't manage in where I'm at right now. It's incredible. Little pat on my shoulder. But then again, that's paying attention, right? And I also have to kind of, that budgeting and forward thinking when you're doing the grocery list, when you're looking at your bills and where they're coming in, you're looking at birthdays and when they're supposed to be taken care of. You're looking at personal needs, just making sure. And if you have a cat, like, uh, what was it that came in? Oh, yeah. So I had $100 left over, and I spent like $30 of that just on taking care of the cat. So the cat is taken care of for the month, right? So you have to forward think a little bit like that. You have to budget. And, this is something that's truly very new to me. I got a little bit of a taste last month when I came back from my trip in September. For the past few years, you guys, I have been so good with paying my bills, making sure my house bills are taken care of, making sure the rent is paid on time. I have been so good with that. And I had budgeted my trip. I had worked it all out in the budget and everything. But when I came home and I had that, oh, I'm home, right? What did I do? I went straight to the grocery store and I got my favorite munchies. Remember what I said? I went and I got ice cream. I'm not supposed to be eating ice cream. It's not good. It's not good for me, but it's pretty good stuff. I love ice cream. But the thing is, I went and I spent money that was meant to be paying for the house bills, and so of course, being on that strict budget, I got some of those old feelings, right? That I used to live in constantly. Just a few years ago, you guys, to be so scared about my utilities being cut off and how I'm going to get money. And it just put a little bit of a scare into me like that because, it was one of those things that I promised myself that I would never ever allow myself to get into that situation ever again, right? And then the situation kind of resolved itself because, Cindy's that kind of girl. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And then everything just kind of works out okay. But I have to do that and I have to believe in that. And sometimes, I get kind of munchy on the stress, right? Because it's important for me to be moving forward, and at the very least not moving backwards. And I felt kind of bad because I always overspend when I go on my trips. I always do. Every year I have to struggle for a couple of weeks, but it's just a struggle. You're going to get out of it, but when you right have that struggle and you don't know how you're going to get out of it, that's a different story. So this is something that I have to pay attention to because it wasn't a good feeling, you guys. It took me right back to that nervousness in my system, that physicality of worrying about stress. And that's something I had forgotten about long time ago because, again, I've been so good not getting ahead of the game, maybe a little bit here and there because I'm practicing in that craft. But I was happy just to stay on top of my bills. I was just happy to stay on top of my bills. And I have been doing that for years now, you guys. Right? But I guess I needed that little reminder of what that feeling felt like because I did forget. Well, I didn't recognize actually. It wasn't that I had forgotten that feeling. It was just that because I lived with that feeling every single day, it just felt the norm. But then after not having that feeling for so many years, and then to have that stress of, oh my goodness, I really blew it. I spent more money this month than I should have. How am I ever going to get on top of this? And right. And it worked out, right? Grateful, very grateful that it worked out. And I could say it was no um no thanks to me, but if I think about it, I had to budget what came in after that in the hurry scurry, and I put myself on a little bit of tightness at the same time knowing that when I stress out, I am I am a punisher of myself, right? I'm right. I make myself suffer. I put myself on the diets. I say no to myself. I stay at home and I apply myself and I just get more brainiacer. Right? But in the end, it just works out, and I am grateful for that. And I always make sure that I throw those gratefuls out there because it could have easily have been a different story this month. It could have easily have been a different story this month, right? So I'm grateful. I don't know how these things come across my path, but I'm grateful that they come across my path when they do. But I don't want to be dependent on the miracle. I don't want to be dependent on the surprise, the expectation, right? Oh, there's one. I don't want to be expecting stuff and then not having it show up in my life, right? That seems a little bit like a greedy grabber to me, right? And I don't want to be that person. I'm happy to work for what comes into my life, right? And at the same time, right? I'm very much grateful for the little bit of helpful along the way. It was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing. So how is everybody else's week gone? I've had a pretty good week today. Yeah, a week this week. I did that again earlier in the week. I said that I had a pretty good week. I had a pretty good week today. No, I had a pretty good week this this week. Things just kind of moved a little bit better. Even with my sisters, my sisters Tracy, who had the quadruple heart bypass that turned out to only be a triple heart bypass. she's healing up pretty good. She got some antibiotics and she's feeling a whole lot better now. And yeah, so she's doing really good. We're going into winter. I've got my goals here. I don't know if you guys want to hear my goals, right? I kind of let you guys know what they are only because it's a commitment almost, right? Because you guys know what my goals are that I will try. And it's not like you guys care. Well, I know you guys care. You guys want me to accomplish my goals. You guys want me to hit those goals. You guys want me to be that example for others. Yeah, I recognize that 100%. But at the same time, I don't want to disappoint you guys when you guys see me fall flat on my face on some of these things because I added some of the big things to this goal list for myself, like hiring an editor, right? And that way I could just go out and I could just film. I came up with an idea for a new series. And one of my friends who lives in this building, we're friendly. We don't hang out and stuff together, though we stop and talk. And, I've known him for decades and stuff. And he's a very nice guy. And right at the same time, he's had a very dynamic life, very big adventure in his life, and some of it's been good and some of it's not been good, like a lot of us, right? Like bumper cars, just hitting one car up against the next, up against the railings, up against the walls, right? That's what life is all about. But yeah, he gave me the idea that for a new uh, YouTube series, and it's having conversations, deep conversations with people, right? Everybody has a story. Everybody has an adventurous story to tell, and whether it's a good story or a bad story, right? We can learn out of somebody's struggles as much as we can learn out of somebody's successes. We can learn, and this is what I learned, right? That you can learn from somebody that you absolutely despise as easily as you can learn something from somebody that you absolutely admire. And that's a truth too, right? But I really need to be on top of that desktop. Oh my goodness. My computer, my desktop, it's starting to sound like a Harley Davidson when I turn it on. I only use it uh for the content that I watch. I don't use it for any of my work. Maybe I'll use Google Maps, but other than that, I don't use my desktop. I use my laptop for anything that I have to do towards that's my brand or anything official to do with the government or anything like that. Any projects that I'm working on, it's always on my laptop, right? And but the desktop, I love having a desktop, right? I love having a desktop. I love having a big monitor right in front of my face. I don't like watching the little monitor on my laptop. I like the big ones. And yes, I've tried the HDM and try to hook it up to my smart TV. I can't figure it out. I have to wait till my nephew comes down. For the time being, maybe I could just work if I can get it hooked to my monitor here. Maybe my laptop will do me for a while. My nephew said that he would take my computer home and he would add some more RAM to it and stuff and get it up and running. I said as long as it's just an authentic Windows on there. I don't want any pirated programs or anything like that. It has to be an authentic Windows. I says, but I appreciate, if you take a look at my PC. It doesn't have to last forever. It just doesn't have to break down on me in the moment. So the desktop is on there. You guys know the tent. I've been keeping my eye out online for tent. The tent that I want is very expensive, $600-700 when you buy them new. So I'll be happy if I can find one for $100, $150, and I sure I can. Right? People don't realize how amazing those pop-up tents are, and lots of times people buy these tents just to go on one adventure, and then they never go on another adventure again, and they're looking for some quick cash, and oh, I got that tent, I'll list that tent. And I've seen that tent, but just in the moment, I didn't have the money to buy it. But I've seen those tents already online, so I'm pretty certain that I'll be able to pick one up for maybe $200. Let me sip my coffee here for a moment. I've been alternating my coffee with tea. So I've been doing one coffee, one tea, and I may try to come off the coffee completely next week. I'm saying next week because I think I have enough coffee to last me a week, and I don't want to be wasting it, and I don't want to put it away in the cupboard because it'll just go stale anyway. So I'm just going to finish up my coffee, and then I'm going to maybe do some kind of challenge, right? Where I'll just allow fluids that are not coffee and see what that does for my system, right? I feel pretty good. I am grateful for my good health. And but I read articles, and I watch posts online about the benefits and the deficiencies of drinking coffee. But I've never found that. I think maybe coffee might make me a little acidic, but I've drunk coffee like right up until it's time to go to bed. And I've never, ever, ever, ever had a problem sleeping in my entire life, right? Even when I worked night shifts, I could sleep all day, no problem. And yeah, I've never had problems with sleeping habits, but I know it is a big problem because I know so many people who suffer from really bad sleeping habits. That some, like even my own sister, she never got more than 2 hours a day in being able to sleep, and she was an executive, like number one salesman, and not just in one category of sales, but she was voted number one sales rep because she could nobody could sell like my sister could, right? But she couldn't sleep. She was just under so much stress all the time. That's what she blamed it on, was on the stress. But in reality, it was the peace that she was looking for, that she was searching for, because she would wake up at, go to bed at 8 o'clock at night, wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then she would just stay up all night because she loved having the world to herself. It was the same thing why I was nocturnal, because I loved having the world for myself. The whole world was asleep. The world the world was mine. Nobody to bother me, no stresses, no phone calls, right? I haven't made a phone call in so long. I phoned my sister a couple of weeks ago, and I says, "Oh my goodness, this is like the first phone call, because usually we're just texting and messaging. This is the first phone call we've made in so long." I says, I don't even know how to talk on the phone anymore. I don't know about you guys in this age of AI learning, how you guys are managing, if you're still using your phones, if you even have landlines anymore. Do you guys have any of you guys have landlines still? I know I just use my cell phone. Oh, really, Andrew? I keep uh juice in the fridge. I use the juice crystals, and I don't like the taste of bleach in the water. I live in Manitoba. We use lots of chlorine in the water, fluoride in the water, and I only said it like that because I was a fluoride baby. Me and my sisters, my whole family was in a fluoride testing program. The worst thing for empaths. I don't know what they were thinking. Like even my parents went into the program, but we all got free dental until we were 18 years old. Our dental was free, and what they did is they were testing the limits of fluoride in the water system because they were just setting the standards for the water reservoirs in BC, and they put us in a program, and I think it was a couple of years anyway that we were in the program, but we got the free dental till we were 18 anyway. But I remember that it was like in little eye drop bottles, and we put it in our juice and our cooking, on our toothbrushes, gargling in our water. Oh my goodness, numerous times a day, and we did that every day. And all of us kids had bad teeth, right? And spent a lot of money on teeth correction because that free dental only lasted until you were 18 years old. And when your teeth have a problem from decaying on the inside to the outside, you don't see the problems until your teeth start breaking, right? So I didn't even recognize the damage to my teeth from all that fluoride until, oh my goodness, I think I was well into my late teens, early 20s when I discovered I was having problems, right? But I never really attribute it to the fluoride tests, only because I didn't recognize how bad fluoride was for you until well into my 50s. And then I remembered, right, that we did all that fluoride as kids, and I was wondering, oh my goodness, do I have a calcified pituitary gland, right? Because that's what they say the fluoride does to your pituitary glands. They say it all calcifies and makes it all hard and crunchy, and right, and it takes away some of those gifts that we're supposed to naturally be able to manage in our lives. I don't jump into everything, but I try and learn enough that I can get myself into a conversation or to allow myself to have a question that I can Google and then take myself down some side branches. Oh my goodness. I did a few of them this week, some interesting topics that I didn't know anything about, and then I had to just kind of Google them to find out what the hell they were all about. And I like learning. I like learning new things, right? I like learning, and it helps me to feel better. I didn't recognize, I'm not a big person about news. I don't dwell in the news because I know the news is just another form of media that's trying to get our attention. And I know I'm in social media myself, right? But it's a different thing, It's just that aggression of getting a message across where you have all these different headline networks, all competing with each other like that with that Melissa, that storm, Hurricane Melissa. And, I said, well, if I get into a conversation, I should know a little bit about what's going on because something came across my path online. So I Googled, right? Hurricane Melissa, and oh my goodness, all these live channels from like 4 days before popped up. And it was just like hours and hours of just like watching the storm. And I just needed a quick bit of information, right? I didn't need to be involved in it. I didn't need to relive it. I just wanted to make sure everybody was okay and that, they have what they needed, right? I heard that it went down to category 3. I wasn't too concerned what happened with the storm after Jamaica, but I was kind of worried about what was going on in Jamaica with this storm. So the information does come across my path, but I'm not happy about the competition for my attention because I don't want to be wasting my time. Like, when I punched in Hurricane Melissa, a gazillion stuff comes up. And you just, like I said, I just wanted a quick, good answer as to what's been going on and then carry on with my day. But no, I've got an appetizer platter, right? I've got a gazillion things that I could be watching on. So I do a little bit of eliminations, news that happened in the past hour on the topic because you can use filters, right? Filter it out. And then finally, you get CNN, and I know, right? BBC, CNN. I'm kind of okay. I know they're bad too at drawing on our curiosity and our compulsion to know what's coming next. But if I didn't have those two, I would have 20 different little networks that I'm getting bits and pieces from. So I'd much rather take the whole compounded story from one or two. Uh, I'm not going to say reputable, but I'll say bigger, right? That they're going to have information that's probably more fact based because otherwise we're going to call them on it, right? Okay. Andrew says, when I still lived in a small town, I would sometimes go out walking at 2 or 4 in the morning here in Bloomington. I would never, I would never do that. In my younger years, Andrew, I would. I love going out. I was nocturnal, right? My jobs were all night shifts, so my days off would be at nighttime, and my friends they were all unemployed bums, sweet beautiful people, but they were all unemployed bums, and so we were all hanging out together just doing our own thing, right? And that would be at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we would be out there, would be at the schoolyard playing football, or we would be, oh my goodness, going for a walk at the zoo, or all kinds of stupid things. It's why I'm wearing glasses actually right now. One of the stupid things that I did, I think I was probably around 20 years old at the time. And they have these, I live right in front of the legislative building, and they have these great big huge 3-foot floodlights that beam up on the building as a great big sandstone gothic looking thing, right? And it just beams on the building, and it just highlights the building, right? But if you stand, and they put these lights inside of the bushes, right? But if you go into the bushes and stand in front of the headlight and stare into the headlight for 5 minutes, you can walk around the city for an hour, and anything that has a light, like a window or a television or a street post, it's purple, and we called it Purple City. Well, right after that, Cindy ended up in glasses. Why? Because I did something idiotic in my own choices. I decided to stand in front of a floodlight. What's the stupidest thing? Right? But we did those kind of things. And of course, probably it was like 4 o'clock in the morning too, because we used to hang out in that neighborhood late at night because it was a very busy neighborhood. Yeah, in the middle of the night. Yeah, it was busy area. Okay. Andrew says he gave up his landline several years ago. Cell only now, but I have two of them. One is a backup phone. Oh, yeah, I have one too. I just use them as cameras because I have Pixels, and Pixels have amazing cameras on them. So I use my old Pixel as a camera, and it's just back. It saved my butt on this trip that I took in September, because when I ran out of power on my other Pixel, I was able to have a fully charged Pixel, handy dandy. The only problem was I had to go in and find the content, because I had no idea where Google was gonna pop it up, right? So I had to go into my photos. And if you guys know my Google photos, I have so much footage. I had to buy another $40 worth of storage for my photos last week, and it's almost all gone, right? Because I let the contract lapse, so I lost all my storage. Otherwise, I would have 200 GBs for this year, but I'll just buy some more for next year. But these are the choices we make. And I make good choices in that, because I ended up still being able to get it done, right? And it was something that I need to get done, more storage, right? I'm a Google girl. I have no choice. I'm part of these communities, and sometimes when you're part of these communities, there are little fees here and there, right? And you just have to be able to manage to stay on top of it the very best that you can, right? And I'm very grateful that I stay on top of things as good as I do. It's a miracle in all reality that I manage so good. But I did get that feeling again last week, and it had been years since I had that I'm behind, and it was a physical feeling. I forgot that it was a physical stress. It wasn't just a mental stress, it was actually in my system, and I felt physically unsafe not having my house bills paid. Oh, uh, not a not a good feeling, right? So Cindy's right away thinking, okay, what are we gonna do? We're gonna have to get the money come rolling into the household again, right? You're still in your lessons, so you're gonna go back to work. What are you gonna do? Right? And I've been thinking of a couple of things. I was actually thinking about going to work for an RV vehicle lot and sell RVs, or work in the office, right? I thought, if I want to have the RV life when I retire, that I should actually be working in the industry so I could actually learn about RVs, that maybe, I can get employee discounts, and then maybe be able to purchase an RV. You never know, with the trade in and the really amazing trading comes in, that I'm able to get a good deal. You don't know, like I said, life could change in just a moment, right? Do I want to go back to waitressing and bartending, my favorite job that I ever had? But also at the same time, I have to remember one of my biggest addictions, which was gambling on those video lottery terminals, specifically got picked up because I was working in bars and nightclubs. And so I have to be very careful that I'm not falling into characteristics of myself that I don't want to be in, that I have been away from a very long time, and it shouldn't be a part of my life. And I'm only saying that is only because sometimes when I go into my Instagram and I'm trying to catch up on what my peers are up to, and then they'll show me a jackpot on a video lottery, and I stop, and I'm thinking, Cindy, don't stop, because if you stop in this scroll, you're going to get suggested more of these. And sure enough, I'm getting suggested those little jackpot things where people are in Vegas and they're videotaping their video jackpot uh, winnings, right? And so I'm trying really hard to just scroll past them because I know if you don't watch them, they won't be suggested to you, right? And I managed to get those suggestions off of my YouTube suggested. They don't suggest those to me anymore because, right, I was doing that on my computers, but on the phone, I don't know. So we're going to try the same thing and we're just going to scroll past them and see maybe in a couple of weeks. They don't give you an option. You can tell them not to show that channel, but they'll just show the same stuff but from somebody else's channel because I've already gone in and checked. If that's all I can do, that's all I'll be able to do. I'll do that, but I'm going to just try and ignore them. Not like I would ever gamble again. And I hate saying I would never, ever gamble again. But that's a promise I made to myself because that just did a job in my life. Oh my goodness. That just went into my life like it was a blender and it just went bzzz, and it just turned my entire life to mush, right? It even contributed to my marriage falling apart, being addicted to those lottery terminals. But that's what we do, right? That's where our compulsive habits come from. That's where our perfectionism comes from. That's where our right. It is in those things that we cope, the things that trigger us, and we have to go, oh my goodness, I need a Coca-Cola or something. Somebody yells at you and go, oh my goodness, I need to go and get myself a pail of ice cream, right? Right? And it could be anything. It could be alcohol, it can be porno, it can go shopping, and you could be like shopping stores and you got closets full of all kinds of things, but right, because you cope. Hoarding is another one. There are so many ways that all of us we cope, and we have to have those coping mechanisms, right? We have to have coping mechanisms because it's such crazy town out in the world right there, and sometimes we're intimidated by all of that, you know. And I have a very addictive personality. I couldn't tell you how many addictions I've picked up and put down, right? After they've done their job. I'd like to say, well, I have been lucky at sometimes that I recognize, oh, this is too much of a good thing, put it down, right? And but lots of times you get sucked into it, right? Just like those posts, those video posts of people hitting those big jackpots. I don't want to stop. I don't want to watch that little clip that's going to give me a boost of little adrenaline, and I'm getting excited for somebody else hitting a big one, right? How about Cindy hits a big one outside of the gambling, right? Reward the fact that I'm not going down that route, because that going down that route, there was no chance that I would be sitting here right now. I wouldn't have taken in one lesson. I wouldn't have made no movement in my life. I would have been hopeless, alone, broke. I'm just thinking it's quite possible those are traits that I still might have, but maybe not. Maybe we're just all moving out of that as we go, right? At least I can smile about it. At least I don't have that physicality of the stress, because you know what I said, how I felt when I didn't pay my house bills. And when I was gambling, you guys, when I was gambling, I wasn't paying my house bills. I was like sprinkling and juggling and avoiding and begging and lying and, oh my goodness, dare I say, right? Took money that was for house bills and for groceries or for gas, and I put those into the lottery terminals and then lied about where that money went or why we don't have groceries in the cupboard or why there's no gas in the car, right? And that's on me. These are the choices that we make. But just recognizing the physicality, right? The physical feeling of having that kind of stress on you all all the time, because it never went away. It never went away. Even if you hit a big jackpot, right? You probably would sit there. I know I would. I would sit there until all that money went back into the machine, plus everything that I had put in to get that money, and then whatever money I put in afterwards, trying to recoup whatever I lost. It was a never ending backwards treadmill gerbil, but going backwards. It was a mess. It put a blender in my life, and it was a reminder last week of, oh my goodness, Cindy, you don't want to go down this route anymore. But it was curious that I actually looked at it, and I looked at it and I felt it, and I felt it physically. I felt that physical stress, and I went, how did I live with this feeling every single day for decades, right? I was probably addicted to those VLTs for 20 years, right? So I would have had those feelings. And then it would have taken me years to get back out of it, right? And then just to be woken up to a totally different idea that pivoted me in a totally different direction. But that's what life is all about, isn't it? That's what life is all about. It's having these experiences and learning by them, right? And in the moment, you might think you're not learning anything about it, and you might not ever have any use for that information, but you might bump into somebody where that's absolutely crucial, right? We're going to stop right here. We're going to send some good cheer. I live behind a fire truck station, and they're off on a call right now. They're going to get to their destination even before they get to their destination tonight, right? And they're getting that call right now, and they're going to turn their fire truck alarm off, and they're just going to go around the block and just right back. And there they go. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. I never know. I never know. But yeah, so that was one of the things that I had to get was the desktop for my computer and the tent. I need to have a really good quality, easy tent that I can put up by myself, something that I can depend on to do a good job that's not going to leave me in a bind and leave me sleeping in a car seat or something because, the tent has died on me, right? And I need a good pair of walking shoes. And because I'm a keen girl, I want to go up to the Canadian footwear store and I want to spend a good hour or so trying on different shoes and picking out my walking shoes for next year. And then when my sister asked me for her Christmas list, then I have my shoes all picked out, ready to go. And that will be a great Christmas gift. And that will probably be my last good pair of walking shoes. Well, probably not. Right? I do a lot of walking. Okay. I gave up my landline several years ago, cell only now, but I have two of them. One as a backup phone, yeah, and like I was saying too, about my second one. It's just an extra camera. I'm super grateful for it. I'm going to probably put off getting my new phone. I can get my new phone now. This phone that I have now is finally paid off, but I don't think I'm going to get the new phone yet. I'll wait for the the Pixel 11 to come out, and give myself a little bit of a break, right? Because my phone is expensive, and my phone bill is going to probably be about half price now that the phone is paid for, and it's a great phone, but right, I don't necessarily need a brand new. Just because I'm a Google girl doesn't mean that I need to have every brand new, fresh release date technology that comes out, right? So we'll just use this phone for a little while, and yeah, and then eventually this will be my spare camera, and then the spare camera that I have, well, somebody's always losing a phone, and it's a perfectly good phone, and I'll just give it to somebody so that they don't have to spend the big bucks, because these phones are not cheap. Oh my goodness, like these kids are being born these days asking for their iPhones, pretty much, right? That all these little kids are going to school and they all have fancy phones and everything. And then of course the phone companies, they don't make it any easier because they have family plans, right? So you got a family of 5 and each of them are going on your phone plan, and then you don't have enough data for yourself because they're spending it all talking to their friends and texting their friends and watching YouTube videos. Okay. Um, Andrew says he lives in. I live in an area where there are many homeless people and where there is drug use. Recently, somebody was shot to death a couple of blocks away from me. Really, Andrew? Oh my goodness. I live, I don't know, all neighborhoods, they can be considered bad these days, right? But I saw my first person like in real time. Like I've seen them on TV and in the news broadcasts and stuff, but I saw my very first drug addict, one of those ones that are all bent over from the fentanyl, right? I saw my very first one of those in people in my neighborhood. It was so sad. I even stopped right beside him. I couldn't help it. I stopped right beside him, and I stared at him, and I just oh, my heart went out to him. I how do you help that, right? And yeah, but that was the first one that I saw. Oh no, that wasn't the first one that I saw, because last month I walked by a bus stop, and there was people inside the bus stop with all their shopping cart and gear and stuff, and they were doing that stuff in the bus shack. Yeah, so my neighborhood is not a super bad neighborhood, but it still has its issues. One good thing is when they're building new housing and they're mixing it in with the old housing in the neighborhood. So what it's doing is it's upgrading and it's bringing up the property taxes and stuff. So it's a more desirable neighborhood. But if they hadn't done that mix, if they hadn't contributed to um, new housing, new development. And I know the government here in Manitoba, they were paying quite a bit during the COVID. They were paying for new construction because they just didn't want a lot of these businesses to fail. And they were paying a lot of the wages. Now, I don't know, if they're still doing that. And they weren't paying all the wages. They were paying just a really high percentage, like 75% of people's wages. So people just kind of went nuts, so building apartment buildings and stuff like that for the longest time. So everybody had lots of business. And it just seems that the only ones with who are not working are the snowplow guys. You guys, it's been a couple of years that we have had really, really mild winters here, and these guys who are they drive snowplow, right? That's their job in the wintertime, and they haven't been getting any work. I think it was only like twice that I saw the snowplows out last year, and those were just after the storms, and then it was all really mucky the next couple of days. And I think with global warming, that might be something that would be um, a lot less than in past decades at the very least. I think we're going to consistently for thousands of years now just get warmer and warmer and warmer until we're like Hawaii here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. It could happen. This used to be an area where, like where I'm sitting right now, where I'm sitting in my chair right now, this was a great sea. I'd be in the bottom of a great sea right now. And it would have been tropical. There would have been islands and palm trees, and they found all the fossilized evidence, to prove that. Even when I go to Ontario, when I go digging for crystals and stuff, I dig up fossils, and I'm up on the top of a mountain, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like this was like the ocean at one time. This isn't a seashell that a bird picked up to brought to the top of the mountain. No, this was the shore, right, of the Great Sea. But things dried up, right, and that's just our movement, right? I'm all about evolution, right, and I believe, that things are going to be constantly changing, whether we're changing or the world is changing itself. But we just have to be able to adapt and conquer and to be able to flow and move with whatever happens. Like even with the Hurricane Melissa, right? That was devastating, and I heard a couple of dozen people possibly had passed away in that storm. But if we did not have the weather system and the technology, right, that we weren't able to get that forewarning out there as to what was coming, how many more people might not have made it through that storm? I heard it was pretty wicked. I heard that it was pretty dangerous, right? And yeah, it's just a matter of, well, paying attention and being grateful for what little bit of information does come across our path, and not just to brush it away as nothing, right? Because in the end it could probably be everything. Yeah. uh oh, really? Yeah, I live on a main drag, Andrew. um it's a pretty busy street, especially during rush hour. It's one of those short to get to the other side of the city, to get on the other side of the river. It's one of those streets that people like to take to just save a few minutes. But it does get backed up, and they did put new horns on our fire trucks. They're still taking me by surprise, these fire trucks, right? Especially when, because the fire station is right behind me. They leave their fire station, and as they turn the corner, that's when they're turning on the sirens. So those sirens are coming on almost right when they're reaching my apartment, and it's just like this, and it'll take me. I'm easily to fright. Like I can be easily frightened in a second, especially being somebody who's very hyper vigilant. When I don't catch something, that makes me nervous, right? Because that says the murderer and rapers could get away with it too, because I missed it, right? So I don't like to be taken by surprise. I don't like coming out of the elevator and having somebody standing there waiting to come on to the elevator. It just spooks. I sometimes will scream. And unfortunately, I have to admit that if you're at arm's length and you've spooked me, pretty good chance that I'm going to swing. Right? I'm going to swing because it's just instinct, right? And my husband used to do that to me all the time when I'd take a shower, and he would come in and whip the curtains and yell, and or open up the door and yell, and I just like fall in the tub. I would be so freaked out, sometimes just burst into tears out of the relief that it wasn't a real murder or raper. My husband did not understand my triggers in any way that way. He thought it was ha 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 ha. He thought it was funny, right? He thought it was funny. So what I would do is I would get my revenge by heaping the shower, and I would go to the hot water tank and I would turn the hot water off. And he would freak out because he was in the middle of a shower, and he would get cold water right off the hop, and always make sure that he was well into, like, he's washing his hair and stuff, like he needs his water. And then I would turn off the hot water, and he would get the cold water, right? And then I'm laughing at that, but he didn't appreciate that too. But the only thing he had to do was to stop scaring me, right? Some people do love watching, experiencing, being a spectator, unfortunately, to other people's uncomfortableness, right? Other people's pain. My sister Alice is one of those. She's always right when somebody hurts themselves or something. She'll give them like a little bit of giggle, or she can put a little bit of a twist on something. She will. That's my sister Alice, and she thinks it's funny. But that was something I think she got off my dad, because my dad, I think, he liked to see people, right, being in discomfort. And that probably had something to do with his own discomfort, that it just reminded him that he wasn't the only one in it. And the only reason I know that is because I used to suffer from, I haven't had Charlie horse in a little while, so I'm not going to say I don't suffer with Charlie horses. I just haven't had one in a little while. Been trying to keep the fluids up as I'm having a dehydrating cup of coffee. But I used to get Charlie horses, and he would just get so much joy out of watching me be in the worst pain. There was nothing he could do for me anyway with the Charlie horse except let me roll around on the floor until the muscle relaxed anyway. But he got great enjoyment out of watching me in my discomfort, right? Some people are just like that. And, those are just slights. I'm sure it wasn't like, he got great enjoyment because somebody was getting chopped up to a million pieces or something. That wasn't the kind of thing that it was, right? It was just kind of the recognition that, crappy things just don't happen to him too. They happen to everybody. And I've suffered from Charlie horses ever since I was a teenager. I don't suffer from aches or pains. I don't get illnesses. I think being single kind of attributes that, I'm not getting these colds that kids bring home and husbands bring home, that I'm not wearing myself out, that, right? I know my limitations, and I try and stay within those boundaries of my limitations by also giving myself a little bit more to do outside of that, a little bit extra, right? My limitations plus a little bit extra. Right? That's my movement, right? You could do one more. I hang out with the entrepreneurs. They're always like, you could do it. Get up, brush your knees off, try again. One more try. You can do it. Right? Imagine how you're going to feel. And it works, right? It works for me because I need to feel good about myself. So when I can accomplish things, right? It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not like I'm going mush, mush, right? You're not working hard enough. I'm doing it more in a challenging. You can do it, Cindy. You got this. This is nothing. If they can do that, you can do it too. Right? And if you can't do it, just keep trying it until you can do it. You can do it. Right? And just be that cheerleader for myself. But I don't like to see people suffering. And that's part of being an empath, right? You'll just jump right in. Let me take your grocery bags from you. Let me hold the door open for you. Right? Jump on my back. I'll take you up the stairs. Right? So yeah, it's just a matter of being um uh what is it? Attentive is not the word I'm looking for. Um uh Attentive. Well, I guess that's the word I'm going to use. Just be attentive to what you need for yourself, right? And try to give a little bit extra effort, whatever you do. I wish focus, focus, a little bit of focus. See, I got tripped up by a word and went down a different branch. Okay. Yeah, but yeah, it is a very loud fire truck. I don't like the horn on this new truck, but it sure pierces the air. That's for sure. That's 3 times that they went by my apartment today. I sent them good cheer all 3 times, right? But yeah, they that noise it does get me. I don't like the new fire alarms. I like the old fire alarms, but those fire alarms are not for me. They're for keeping people safe. And yeah, it gets my attention, so I know they work. Okay. Um, Andrew says, I don't go out at night because of the neighborhood situation, and I'm also unable to run because I can't run anymore because of the arthritis. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Andrew. It's still not letting up in any way. I wish I had some tips and tricks for the arthritis. My mother suffered, my sister suffers arthritis, um, and her whole life. From the time she was 30, she had that arthritis and her hands were buckled and clenched up. When she had a cup of coffee, she'd drink her cup of coffee like this, right? But in the end, there wasn't really anything that she did to alleviate the pain. Even eating all that Tylenol, she went through like a big jar of Tylenol almost like every week. And that's not even a lie. And my mother passed away. She had stomach cancer in the end, right? But that was from the coatings, I believe, from all those Tylenols. And I was just reading an article or just saw a post or something about the coatings on these vitamins and on these pills that go out there. And I believe 100% it contributed to my mother's stomach issues, right? And but she never did find relief. At the end of her life, they put her on a trial. It didn't become relevant because my mother got the big C, right? So that it couldn't be pertinent because it would only add to the evidence that it was could cause cancer, right? So, but she took these pills and these hands that were locked up. I'd go to visit her and she'd go, Cindy, look it. And she'd go like this. She didn't get them fully open, but when you have like 20 years and your hands are fists, like her hands were fists, and then she was able, look at Cindy, look at what I can do. And she'd be doing this, right? It blew me away, right? The technology, the innovation that we have, because it was like 20 years and they were locked. They were locked. And my mother didn't like doctors. She didn't like hospitals. But if you gave her a pill that might help her to relieve that pain in her or allow her fingers to open like that, she would be all about that. But she never found anything, Andrew. There was she right? That's not to say that there won't be solutions in the future, right? They here in Canada, I don't know if you guys heard, but they just approved a Alzheimer drug here in Canada to slow down Alzheimer's, right? Isn't that amazing? Alzheimer's. Not only did they find, not only did they authorize that this medication can now be distributed. It's very expensive, right? So probably have to pay out of pocket unless you have really good medical insurance. But not only did they offer up a medication that will slow down Alzheimer's, you can have a test done, right? It's just a spit test. And you can have a test done, and they'll tell you whether or not you're going to get Alzheimer's. They can do that now too, right? They can tell you whether or not you have the, what do you call that? The swing towards having Alzheimer's. This is innovation. There's going to come a time that we're going to have no worries when it comes to medical. Even our organs, when we're born and our heart's not developed properly or our lungs aren't developed properly, that they're going to have procedures that are going to fix that instantly, just like Star Trek, when Spock does that little scanning and then everything comes back to normal and they wake up after being dead for 20 minutes. It's going to be like that. And then at that point, we're going to have to decide, right? And I hope it's not my lifetime, right? When are we going to say goodbye, right? Are we going to stay forever? If the system can keep us alive until we're 300 years old, are we going to stick around? I think it's important for us to stick around, because if you wake up to ideas, it gives you an opportunity to get as much of that work done. That's why I'm so grateful that, even though I didn't wake up to any of my ideas until well into my late 50s, that at this point I have that opportunity by my own choice to tread some water and to make some progress for myself, so that the next, for myself or for those other parts of me that may have an opportunity to come back and impact in somebody else's life who might be able to impact, let's say, the world, right? I am so grateful to be able to be a part of that opportunity. If not for myself, then for the next one that gets to bump up, to have an opportunity to get to know themselves the way, right? And I'm not to say I am pretty naive in what's going on with those other parts of me, but I'm paying attention and I'm trying to make good decisions in that, right? But it's not decisions that will necessarily benefit me in this moment or even in my whole lifetime, possibly not, right? but it sure as hell going to make some definite movement for my nieces and nephews and great nieces and our line moving forward, right? And those other parts of me, like I said, they'll find themselves in a relationship with somebody else, not as magnificent as me, but they will. And in that relationship with me, they'll maybe find ways to, right, make a connection with somebody else. That's my optimistic wish for those other parts of me. And that's why I show up here all the time, right? I never, ever, ever want myself or any one of my sisters or nieces or nephews to ever find themselves in that situation that could have easily turned out a totally different way. It was only because of the day and age that I woke up to some of these ideas. It was only the fact that I allowed myself to be pulled into the age of AI learning. But nobody knew that this age was happening, right? It's like technology, this kind of technology is like, right, in the 1960s, maybe the beginning when the television first came out in the late 50s. With the Was it the late 50s that TVs first came out? That even then, who would have ever thought that we would have made it to this stage in this day and age? And I think a lot of the movement that's going on right now, it's because we weren't expected to make it to this point. And now there's this readjustment that has to happen because we're on a new path now, right? And each one of us has to be a steward of ourselves, right? We have to take care of ourselves in the crazy town. Andrew, you take care of yourself in that neighborhood that you live in. And I'm sure it was probably a very nice neighborhood at one time, right? But things are changing in this world, and to each one of us, we get to make those choices or not, right? Or not. Okay, let me get into these last few comments and then we're going to call it a night. You guys, it was a really good week today. It was a good week. I hope everybody else's week feels good too, that we're moving into next week with things falling into place a little bit better. How are things, Andrew, going with your brother? Did you get that all sorted out? Um, Yeah, let me know. Did you get that all sorted out? Oh, Robert came into my live show last night. What's my good cheer? I was pretty excited because, I don't think he's come into that live show, but he just popped in to say hello, to say happy Halloween and stuff. So I thought that was really nice. I haven't seen him pop into this live show. He said that he might pop in. He might pop in, but right? Life gets us and we move wherever we decide to move, and each one of us gets to make that choice, don't we? Everybody. That's my live show. I'm going to get some juice now. I'm going to sit in front of my screen. I am watching Carl Jung. Oh, you guys. He was the last person I ever thought that I would be able to delve into his content. There's another guy, Dusky Busky. I haven't delved into his, but I've been working myself up to moving into some of his ideas because everybody references him, but everybody references this Carl Jung. And I thought, oh my goodness. And I went into his content one time and I said, oh my goodness, this is like Chinese to me. I don't understand any of this jibber jabber. And I didn't go back into it. And then everybody's talking about him. So I go in again. I just don't understand any of this. And now for the past month or two, I have been gobbling up his content. and understanding it too. So that's pretty interesting because it makes me understand. Like sometimes you just need the prerequisite. Sometimes you just haven't had the lesson that you needed beforehand before you go in and take the main exam, right? That's how I looked at it. So I was just watching a video here. What is it? What happens when you finally choose yourself above all else? Yeah, that's what we're learning today. Okay, you guys, that's it for me tonight. Everybody, have a great week. If you want to pop in tomorrow, 9 o'clock, I will be in here. I've been pretty consistent, 9 o'clock every night. I've been showing up, not no more of this 5 minutes to midnight. In fact, I'm in bed by midnight every. I look at the clock at like 11 o'clock. Go, oh, I'm so ready for bed. Oh, I think you can stay up, Cindy, just a little while longer. I want to be consistent in what time I go to bed, right? So I just been finding it pretty interesting that I've been able to manage to come in at 9 o'clock every single night, do my live show, do the last minute tidy up of my apartment, and then just get in my pajamas and go to bed. It's kind of a nice little routine. I was actually even thinking of turning it to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but I don't know if I'm out in the workforce or something, how all that plays out. But you know what? We've been doing this juggling around for 10 years. I think we'll be able to manage with the next little switch up, whatever that might be coming up in my life. You guys, have a great night, and we'll see you next Sunday.